Hello and welcome to Talk is Jeep. I am Art Aldrich. I'm joined with Tom Chartrand.
Hey, Art.
How you doing? It's been a long while.
It's been a while, yeah, but glad we're getting back to Jeeping season. For me, especially getting ready to hit some beaches and, maybe dig some stuff up here or there. We'll see.
It's been a little while since we had our last Jeep trip.
Yeah,
Our last Jeep trip was in Moab, Utah
right.
in October of 24. We'd actually recorded a podcast, not a video podcast just because of the timing. But
Right.
we had recorded a podcast right after the event just to keep it kind of fresh and
Keep it in the mind. Yeah.
accurate. And then we had some technical issues, and so we couldn't use it. And I wanted to get back to it because we actually, met some good people there, and I actually
Amazing.
recorded some interviews with people over Zoom who were at the event, just so it wasn't just my voice and your voice.
Awesome. I think that's great because we had a really diverse cross section of Jeep enthusiasts on that trip because, it was such a micro organism of a Jeep Jamboree. It was really cool meeting some people that were just so enthused by such a special event.
I mean, I will say this at all of the events that I've been to, and I've probably been to, I don't know, 15 or 20 Jeep Jamborees over the last 5, 6 years. You do meet really great people. I mean, I've
Absolutely.
I've met people there that I would be like, I would definitely sit and have a meal with this person, if the circumstances permitted.
Absolutely.
The Moab Odyssey trip, if you're not familiar with it, it's one of the Jeep Jamboree signature events, and that means it's got some special features. I mean, it also has a higher price point than the regular Jeep
Right.
Jamborees by a good factor, and we'll talk about that later in the podcast. But
Right. And these
the
experiences were all new, right? Weren't they new for 2024?
yes, the
Yeah.
one that we went to was the first
Right.
event. I don't know if that was the first year they did signature events or not. I don't recall.
Okay.
But this was the first um Moab Odyssey, they're calling it.
Right.
And so when I saw the posting and the fact that it was being hosted by the YouTuber Fred Williams, I was just like, wow, this is going to be a great trip because
Right.
I mean, to me, he's an interesting personality. If you don't know him, which I was actually surprised that most people on the trip didn't know who
Right.
he was.
We told our kids that we were going to Moab on this Jeep Odyssey, and they were green with envy to start with, and we said, well, it's going to be hosted by Fred Williams, and my son-in-law's face just dropped, and he's a big fan. He's in his 20s. He used to write, told us stories of coming home from school, rushing home to watch his episodes on, and so we really didn't know much about Fred Williams. We do know a lot more about Fred now, and since we both had been sick recently, we've been catching up on a lot of YouTubes.
Watching all the old episodes, but Fred was amazing.
We would
We should have known about Fred.
in a heartbeat, we'd sign on to another Fred Williams trip.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the whole reason of my interest level was because he was hosting the trip.
And I think he was riding along more for the fun and a little bit of joviality than truly hosting, which, let people still get away and do their own things and just kind of commiserate with him, which was different than we expected, I think, but it was cool.
Yeah, it was different. And
Yeah.
if you don't know who Fred Williams is, he used to be part of the Motor Trend network, and he had a show called Dirt Every Day or Dirt Daily. I think Dirt Daily is his new show. Dirt Every Day was the show that was on Motor Trend, and he just did a lot of crazy
Right.
off-road stuff. Not everything with Jeeps, but a lot of Jeep stuff. And he's a Jeep guy,
Yeah.
So we went to this trip, and one of the things that made it unique, and aside from Fred, was the fact that they gave you a Jeep.
Right. Not
and
gave, but yeah.
yeah, they provided you a Jeep to use, and that was the first jamboree I've ever went to where that was even an option. You could
Right.
bring your own. They would give you a discount off the price of the jamboree if you brought your own. But
Right.
for us, we were, if you remember, we were right between two jobs,
Yes.
and we flew in and we flew out, and we went to work on both sides.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really an option
No,
to
it was a jam. We couldn't take our time getting there or getting back.
right. Right. And I actually talked about it on the last podcast that last year I had made a commitment to sort of take the next step of being able to bring my Jeep to these
Right.
types of events. And I bought a trailer, and I have a F-150 that I'm leasing. And, I had that last year, and I could have, in theory, brought my Jeep. There wasn't time.
Right.
There wasn't time to do it. So I wasn't sure how that part of the trip would be. I mean, we didn't really have a choice. Wanted to do the trip,
Right.
so we did the trip as it was. But I was a little hesitant about using like a rental Jeep, so to speak.
I wanted to use my own Jeep, but I didn't want to deal with the headache and hassle of something breaking. That often happens with these.
Of course, you don't know it. You're not sure what you're going to be given. Thankfully, they were all pretty great vehicles, but
Yeah,
you're
they
not
were
comfortable with it
they were
necessarily.
built, and they were 4-door JLURs,
Right.
Rubicon 4 doors, and they were built 35s and automatics.
Yep.
Most of them, I think all of them were soft tops, but I don't recall if they were all identical.
Only one soft top actually came off though during the whole trip.
Yes, our soft top was the only one that was not
Right.
up, which I don't understand
I
Jeep
know.
people who treat the Jeep like it's a car. It is a convertible. Take that top off.
Exactly. Even though it's 42 in the morning, it's going to warm up.
Yeah,
And it
exactly.
did.
Oh, it did. Absolutely. Absolutely. So we flew into Grand Junction, Colorado, which I guess is the closest airport to Moab.
Right. Right on the
And
border, pretty close.
it was a drive though. I think it was like 2 hours to
2.5. Yeah. Got to go through a ghost town. That was kind of fun
yeah,
on
it
the
was
way.
a small little airport.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to wait because we waited a good probably 45 minutes for the rent-a-car line.
Right. Yeah. No automated, no walk out and grab your car.
Right. There's no express lane, and there's like very, I guess all the flights get in around the same time from all the airlines.
Right.
And so they get overloaded pretty quick.
Yeah. I think there were just 2 gates there or 2 baggage claims. So
Yeah.
it was, yeah, a little bit tight, but that's, all good. Good to get away from all the big stuff sometimes,
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Right.
So we drove to the Moab location. We stayed at the Hoodoo Hotel,
Right.
which is a Hilton, though I don't think it says Hilton on it. It just says Hoodoo.
Right. It was a part of the Hilton family.
Yes. Yes. And it was a
And
very nice hotel.
it was great. And they were townhouse type of units. So it was like a
Well,
Homewood
the
Suites or something like that.
well, the hotel had like two components. It had
Right.
the regular hotel rooms inside of the main building,
Right.
and they had these casitas, I think they called it,
Yes.
which were like not even a studio apartment. It was a townhouse. It was a
Right.
two-bedroom townhouse.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, we stayed in the two-bedroom townhouse, but we were told that it was going to be double occupancy rooming for the whole trip.
Right.
Now, that didn't turn out the way it was, it didn't turn
It
out that
was
way in
set.
reality.
Right.
And I heard that there was a snafu. I don't know whose fault the snafu was on, but I heard there was a mix-up
Right.
either on the number of rooms or the dates at the Hoodoo. And the casitas were like an 11th hour Hail Mary.
Ah, okay. Because with only one queen bed or one king bed, that could have been awkward.
Yes. Yes. So so if you're hearing this and you're doing the Moab Odyssey, your mileage may vary. They may have figured out the
Right.
logistics by the time Moab number 2 comes around. But at least for number 1, we had a pleasant surprise of a very nice,
Mm,
like I said, a townhouse with a fireplace, I think, and a living
yep.
room, kitchen, and the bedrooms were upstairs, 2 bedrooms,
Very
washer,
comfortable. Yeah.
dryer.
Yep.
I mean, it was nice.
It was. It was very comfortable to come back to, and it was eclipsed later on by even cooler accommodations. We'll get to
Right.
that.
Right. We will get to that. So we had the sort of the kickoff meal. We met
Yeah.
Fred.
I was nervous, very nervous at the beginning. Like I had butterflies. I was terrified when we were all walking up to the Jeeps and they said, okay, just pick whichever one you want. And I had so much anxiety and concern.
So the first day's trail was, I think, maybe going to be the day 2 trail, but they decided to, do an audible, and we did
Right.
top of the world. And all of these trails are the Jeep Badge of Honor trails. So
Right.
if you've had experience with the Jeep Badge of Honor trails, these were 3 of those trails. If you're not familiar with them, there's a Jeep Badge of Honor app. You download the app, you create an account, and then you have to check in while you're in the vicinity of the trail somewhere.
Which can be dicey on some of those outlying
It
areas.
it can be, because there wasn't a lot of cell service in there. But basically,
Right.
you check in, and then you get in the mail for free a little plastic badge that you can. I mean, I know a lot of people put them on their Jeeps. I don't particularly like that.
Right.
GAC, I think, is the term on my
Ooh,
Jeep.
that
Um,
gack. All right, all you kids.
yeah, I think I don't know what I'm gonna do with my. I have a few badges because we got one out in Drummond Island. We got a
Drummond Island,
badge of
right.
honor um, badge, but I don't. I'm not gonna put mine on my Jeep. I may put them in a picture frame or some kind of a thing. I don't know.
Sure.
How do you guys out there feel? Like, do you put the badge of honor trail badges on your Jeep? Do you like to show that off? Is that your flex?
I
What
guess
do you
I mean,
think?
to me, it's a cool question because is it a conversation starter? Does it guide you into a conversation about, whoa, what's that about? What is Badge of Honor with your Jeep to get other people maybe more interested? You know, and I know my Jeep didn't make that climb, but we did together. So I don't know. I see it more of a conversation starter, and it's not, I wonder. So yeah, what do you guys think?
talkisjeepshow@gmail.com. Drop a note and let us know what you think of the badge of honor badges. The only thing that I have on my Jeep, I have the stickers from each Jeep Jamboree year.
Right.
And so I just have a little strip of, I missed one year where I all the jamborees I signed up for, I had to cancel because of
So
work.
work. Exactly.
So I have one year that I'm missing, but I've lined them up on my front quarter panel.
There you
But
go. But
I don't think I want to do more than that.
gotcha. And in defense of anybody's, opinion, your Jeep is such a personal thing, and that's why I love looking at Jeeps that do so many different crazy things. You might see 100 ducks on a dash and be like, "Oh my God, what?" And different stickers, and it's an opportunity for somebody to really make their Jeep their own. And I think that's part of the beauty of owning a Jeep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, and it's not everyone's cup of tea. So,
Yeah.
you know. But anyway, getting back to the trails. So, top of the world, the trail itself wasn't very technical. It wasn't. I mean, the visuals out there are stunning. We were commenting just on
Right.
the drive in from Grand Junction. It's
Yes.
just this epic canyon walls and rivers and just scenery that goes on forever. And that was awesome.
Right.
And you get that on all of these trails, but the technical part of the top of the world trail wasn't really much.
Well, there were some, looking back at some of those pictures, there were some, neat little, inverted climbs. And in defense of the guides, with the rental Jeeps from twistedjeeps.com. They provided us some great vehicles. They didn't want to take a chance of doing damage too. So that was one thing that was, it would have been great to take some tries and do some more challenging things, but they didn't want to take a chance to damage the rental vehicles. So I get that
Right.
too.
I remember one of the guides telling us that, there's some restrictions on which trails you can run in
Ah,
Moab with a rented Jeep.
ah,
And so the trails we did were approved, but again, they didn't want to ding them up too much.
sounds like an insurance company had something to do with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it was like the feature, I guess, of that trail is this rock ledge that you get to, which is hanging out
Ah,
over this canyon. And I mean, Jeep has used it in their commercials. It's just an iconic spot where you literally can see around you for thousands of miles.
oh my God, and thousands of feet down. Just the panorama is amazing. And I'm sure you're looking at a video of it right now from our drone, which we were lucky enough to have out there. Just
Well,
beautiful.
well, this is a little plug here for the YouTube channel because most of the people who are with us are listening on the podcast. Way
Ah,
more podcast views than there are YouTube channel views. So if you don't know, we do have a YouTube channel. It's called at Talk is Jeep Show on YouTube, and there's a video component to almost all the podcasts, or at least there will be going forward. I don't think every episode has a video component going back,
right.
all 20 episodes, but this one, it has a video component. We have some great video. Tom, you shot most of it. You did an excellent job with the drone
Thank you.
and the
Yeah.
iPhone, and we had some GoPros running.
Yeah, oh yeah, all of that. It was fun switching it all, and we had a mishap with one of the drones. So
If you're listening and you're curious, go head over to YouTube and check out the YouTube
yeah.
channel. The scenery out there was
Ah,
beautiful, and
yeah.
that top of the world ledge, we spent a fair amount of time there. They obviously if you brought your own Jeep, they would let you put your Jeep out on the ledge and then take pictures.
Right.
Because most of us had rentals, there was only one or two people I think that had their own Jeeps,
Yes. Yeah.
and they got to put their Jeep up there. Everyone else, we just used one of the rentals
Right.
we did a group photo. You could do a few different takes up there, but I think we had lunch there too, and
We
you
did.
know, it was epic. I mean, the views were epic, but
They
I
were.
think
It was a long
overall
drive up there.
it was, and the overall trail. I do remember as you're saying it. We'll show some of the stuff. There were a couple of technical. I mean,
Yeah.
my driving, it didn't really seem too hard. I know a few people had some trouble on some of the obstacles, but if you followed the line and yeah, I mean, I guess there was no way to know really everyone's level of experience
Right.
in driving, and so
But
the
being a
guides.
being a passenger with you over the years, I know you're willing to take some chances that other people may not, and you come out on top, 98% of the time.
Oh, look at
So I know it
this.
was frustrating because you'd see something, and I remember looking at your eye like, oh, I want to go there. But overall, and you'll see looking back at it that it was a really, really cool trail and definitely worth the journey. I'm looking at some of the pictures now, and it was even nice seeing a few really nice lifted TJs because that's my soft spot, with some nice lifts and 37-inch tires, and there were a lot of happy Jeepers out there.
It seemed like if you noticed over the course of the 3 days, the three trails, day one, everybody was stopping. They were getting us over all the obstacles. Day two, they pedaled it back a little bit. And by day three, what did he say? He's like, hey, if anybody needs us, just call. We're on the radio. And we were just jamming. Because I'm not saying can run out and do this by myself. That'd be stupid. But I felt confident to, in a group setting, to be able to look at the obstacle that was ahead and read it right, or watch the person in front of me. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to try that. I'm going to go a little around this way or that way instead. I felt good about the trails.
Something I did like was that every trail we did was very different from the one before. Like, we didn't seem to be going over the same stuff, like they were all very very different, like Top of the World and Steel Bender and Metal Masher. Like I didn't feel like we were repeating things.
Day 2, we did Steel Bender.
Right.
And from what I remember, definitely a little more technical.
Yes. Yeah. Steelbender was, I want to say that's the one we came in low. There was a lot of waterways we rode along, and just high arching walls on top, and we rode over some arches,
Yes.
and it culminated, I think, in this crazy drop that I had no desire to be a passenger or driver on.
Well, that was the one where we stopped for lunch at the top of the obstacle, and everyone had a good hour to kind of stew over it. The problem with this one,
And then,
the problem is that
I mean,
you're being forced to go on the right edge as you come down, and if you can't stop for some reason, you're going over.
Yeah.
That's the problem with that, because you can't. I'm saying you can't come on driver.
right?
You can't be driver, right? You have to be passenger on that rock.
Jesus Christ.
Right, and if you miss the
if you miss the landing, if you don't stick the landing,
yeah, you don't stick the landing. And this one's a beauty.
oh my God.
That was like, there was a pucker factor. The way the
Yes.
guides were talking about it, they wanted to put a tow line at the from the top
From the top. Yep.
on, especially if you had a 2-door. They wanted to put a tow line or a safety line on the Jeep just in case it wanted to go over.
Yeah.
Because you were definitely off camber.
Oh, it was freaky. And there was no forgiving area that if you did go over, because you were just toppling over the
No,
end. So,
there was no bypass.
and just shout out to the guides who really had good eyes on the ground and knew everybody's vehicle and kept an eye on everyone.
I'll say that if we had been on our own and we had not been with guides, we wouldn't have had the nerve to go the places we went. So that was one of the I think great benefits, is it safely allowed you to extend beyond your comfort zone. And
I mean, everyone was talking about that, all through lunch and even at dinner. That was sort of the big point of the day.
It really was. And to give it a little perspective too, for people that are going to jump over to YouTube, you and I, we both work on the Iditarod up in Alaska too. And when you're in a plane or you're out in an area like this, the vast open unknown, your cameras just don't capture, and the drone didn't capture it, and the phones don't capture the expanse, the drop of what was going on that particular one. It's like we can talk all we want about it, but until you're looking at it, oh my God, it just just multiply times 100% the fear factor you get when you see those visuals.
That's true. I mean, out of all the stuff that we film, all the time, sometimes video can't capture
Yeah.
the reality of it. It always looks more tame.
Right. Right. Yeah, it doesn't, the pucker factor filter doesn't always come through.
I do think though the day 3 trail, which was called Metal Masher, I think that was my favorite trail of the week of Moab. I mean, there's probably hundreds of trails.
Right.
And actually, one of our participants that we became friendly with, Amy, she had a guidebook. There's a Moab off-road trail guidebook that I was never aware of. And she's very detail oriented, and her and her
She had
mom
done
were
her
out
homework,
there on a road trip, and she had really done some research into it, and she let us look through the book, and it looks like you could basically go out and do some self-guided
Right.
Jeep trips if you wanted to, though it's probably not recommended to do it alone.
Right.
But
And she was with her mom. So they were families there. There were, Jeep guys like us that were just having fun being together because they love Jeeps. It was a really, again, a cool, diverse cross section of Jeep lovers, which was
It
a
was.
neat experience.
We had so much fun with everybody on the other people who did the trip, plus the guides and Fred. Was a great crowd.
It was a great crowd, and we had a lot of fun. And
The trails overall, I guess, not as technical as I would have liked, I guess, overall. But again, maybe we were limited by skill of participation overall, plus the rental Jeeps. I'm sure there's.
I think that's a big part of it because, again, you're so used to doing the Catskills and really getting dirty in there. And this was as much about your surroundings as it was about climbing some rocks and getting and seeing some amazing vistas and taking some funky climbs to get there.
Well, let's talk about it from this aspect because I think this gets into some of the other areas of the jamboree that make this one unique, and that is like who is this jamboree for? Because it's not your typical like go out and hardcore wheel and you're camping or whatever. Like this is more, I would say this is more like the Disney World variation of a Jeep Jamboree in the sense that you can bring your wife, you can bring your girlfriend. It's comfortable, like it's expensive.
Right.
You're getting nice accommodations, you're getting, certain things that make the trip more of a luxury trip.
Right.
When you go to Disney and you're going to stay at Disney property, right?
Yeah.
When you're on site at Disney, you're paying upper level.
Right.
But you have a certain expectation that they usually live up to with that, with that Disney.
They deliver the goods. Yeah.
They deliver the goods. And Jeep Jamboree is priced this one, I would say, in that stratosphere.
Right.
It's the higher echelon of pricing. I mean, it's $11,000 for 2 people.
Right.
But I think what they gave us was a very good trip. And that's why I say, like, I would never bring my wife to, like, the Catskill Mountains Jamboree just because she wouldn't enjoy, the accommodations. But I could bring her to Moab on that signature trip. I think she would enjoy it. She would have the option of not even going to the trail, but still having something to do. The hotel had, spa services, and there were other things to do in town.
Right.
I think we were the perfect, the perfect audience. I mean, I think it's good for people who haven't done a lot of Jeeping that want to push the boundaries a bit and do a few things they might not do on their own before they get into trouble. And I think it's highly suited to people who have to come from the East Coast or elsewhere that won't have their own vehicle. That as well.
And I think we learned a lot. Like I feel like we were probably the least experienced people that were part of the jamboree. Like, gosh, learned so much and learned a lot from Fred. Like Fred was very good at sharing and teaching, certain things. Like, I mean, I know he wasn't there as a teacher, but he definitely was guiding us and helping us along the way. If we had questions, he would answer them.
So. And we broke a Jeep, but it wasn't ours.
And also, I'd look at it as well about, it's also an opportunity to see a part of the country that you've maybe never seen from a place that not a lot of people get to see. And there's a lot of people that can't get their Jeeps out to places where their bucket list is. So it's an opportunity to say, you know what? I don't have to throw caution to the wind with my Jeep and get it across country. I don't have to take chances with something that might break down. We had one participant whose personal Jeep did break down, and again, Twisted Jeep stepped up and got them a rental. So it's a bucket list kind of an event that you don't have to worry that everything's going to fall apart if something does fall apart, right?
Well, Jesus, what if I go somewhere and I break it and it's not an easy get it home, and you've got to get it repaired out of state. So it was difficult. I felt silly bringing my own Jeep and it's sitting in the parking lot, but I also felt comforted that at least I have a ride, a way to get home.
The thing that I like in general about the Jeep Jamborees is that if you break down on the trail, the guides will go, above and beyond to get your Jeep running again, get it at least off the trail, or better yet, back on the trail for the next day. They go through tremendous amount of effort to make sure that, you're not stranded.
Right.
So I think you could say that about all the Jamborees, but again, like this one had some more creature comforts that the others don't. But again, you're paying a higher price for it.
For sure. Yeah.
Now let's talk about the Fred Williams part, because again, the Fred Williams part, as I alluded to earlier, was the real hook for me.
Right. I didn't know as much as you did coming into it, but you had been a subscriber to those shows and shared a lot of it with me, and I'm like, this guy's crazy.
He's a genuine character and a genuine person. Yeah. But here's the thing. So, the way it was sort of built up was that he was going to be the host of the Jamboree. And as you sort of pointed out, he wasn't really the host. He was more of like a guest. He was a guest of the Jamboree.
He was Ed Sullivan to Johnny Carson.
he was in a sense, he was there at the meals and he was there on the trail rides. I thought that he could have been more leadership, so to speak, like I would have loved to hear him talk about, and he did a little bit if you got him one-on-one and asked him a question. But as a group, I would have loved to, like, after dinner, to have a little Q&A or just talk about some of his experiences, his TV stuff, some of the crazy things that he's built or done with Jeeps. Like, I wanted
it wasn't
more
organized. It wasn't organized like that. And it could have been, because for you, that, like you said, that was a main draw. So it could have been, Q&A chat with Fred after dinner or something like that.
Or show and tell, like he could show clips. Now, what was surprising to me is that when we got there and I was talking to people as we were gathering and meeting, like, a lot of them, I would say maybe 75%, didn't have a clue who Fred Williams was.
Right.
And
I knew his name, but I didn't know as much. Yeah.
But I guess that wasn't really the appeal for them, which is interesting. Like, that was the main reason I would pay extra to go on that Jamboree. And I think that's how Jeep Jamboree thought it was going down.
Right.
But in retrospect, I think many people didn't know who he was.
Which is interesting because his name has been in the game for so long. And like you say, it didn't come out with all the variety of people that we had out there.
But now I think if you brought Fred Williams to, like, the Catskill Mountains, I think like 80% of the people would know who he was, as opposed to 25%. Yeah. I think it just depends. It depends, because I think, again, this trip, I think the people who wound up going on this trip weren't necessarily the hardcore four-wheelers,
right?
As much as people there was a father and son. There were a couple of married couples, mother-daughter, couple of buddies, but it was much more of a we're here for the experience as opposed to the Fred Williams, hardcore rock crawling.
Because Fred was, if you were able to engage him and get him aside, he just kind of let loose, and it was great.
Yeah, it wasn't hard to get him engaged. It's just it wasn't structured. You had to go up to him and engage him. He wasn't necessarily going, and he did try to ask some questions, a little bit of like who you were or whatever. But like what I thought would have been cool was have him ride with everyone in their Jeep for a little bit. Like, that would have been easy to do.
100%.
They were all four-seaters, He rode with the guides, and I thought that was a little bit of a missed a missed step, a missed
I didn't even
opportunity.
think of that until you brought it up, but absolutely. Maybe they just didn't use him to the extent that he could have been used, because I think if people got to know him, it could have been like a two-way thing. It could
Yeah,
have gotten
absolutely.
more for him as well
Absolutely.
as the
Absolutely.
participants. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that part of it was, like a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the other parts of the trip that were not the jeeping or the Fred Williams part, the hotels and the meals, because all of the meals and the hotels were included. That part of it was again based on double occupancy. We sort of alluded to the fact
Yep.
that we had these townhouses in Moab at the Hoodoo, but I think that was in error. Not sure whose error, but that was in error. I think we were supposed to be basically in a shared room.
Right.
And
Right.
so we had a much different experience because we had this nice, townhouse. But
I just want to say, coming back after day one, the guides who, they put in serious hours, and they had our Jeeps ready the next day. They had them gassed up. So that part of the experience, there was nothing we had to worry about. The next day we were ready to go, and they were on top of all that, which I think is a nod to them as well, to be on top of the rentals and make that part of the experience all that it was.
yeah, there were three guides plus Fred. They
Hmm.
all were working tremendous hours to make it
Yep.
smooth. I mean, lunches, beverages, like you said, fueling it.
Yep.
Mine didn't get washed every night. I'm not sure if that was an oversight. I had requested that, but
Well, you were the jerk that put your top down when no one else did. So,
oh, it was so dusty. It was so dusty. And then when we had to check out on day 3.
two,
Oh, day 2, right? We had to check
two,
out
right,
on day 2 because we were moving hotels.
right.
And when I say hotels, so we had the beginning and the end of the trip was at the Hoodoo, but
Right.
the middle night of the trip was at Ulum Resort,
Yes.
which
In
was
Monticello, Utah.
not a hotel per
Right.
se. Resort might mean different things to different people. It was basically a glamping resort. It was
Yes.
a tent that was like a platform tent with a
Yep.
fireplace and a bed and running water, toilet, a sink.
Almost no Wi-Fi, which somebody will say, "Oh, you don't need it out there," right?
Yeah. Well, when you're trying to get stuff done, either cameras or
Yeah,
firmware or
that's
uploads,
true.
whatever. But yes, but anyway, it was a great experience.
Oh, it was beautiful. It really was. I didn't expect it to be that neat because it was. I don't camp. It's not my world, but being able to have a great dinner there, get good coffee in the morning, and start your own fire, it just it really was a Disney type of experience.
Again, we were supposed to have double occupancy. We were supposed
Yeah,
to be sharing a tent. And again, that would have been interesting because I don't think they had tents with doubles in them.
right.
And they wound up basically, you got your own tent, I got my own tent. Other people who had that situation, I think the father and son wound up getting their own tents. So I'm not sure if that was a oversight or a fortunate accident or just the fact that it was maybe the, time of year where they weren't busy and they were able to do it for us.
I mean, in my mind, it really might just be that was one element they didn't think of going into it, so I don't fault them hugely for it. But, so somebody has to sleep on a couch for a night. Big deal, you
No,
know?
it's not. It wasn't a fault or
Oh,
criticism.
yeah, yeah.
It worked out that we had our own tents.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
again,
that was lucky.
it might have been a different experience if someone slept on a couch or a chair or whatever.
Especially if
Um,
I'm snoring in the tent.
so, but again, beautiful accommodations.
Yeah.
The only, it was chilly at night. Overnight, it got really cold.
It did.
And the fire goes out. I mean, I don't care how much raging fire you have when you go to sleep, it's only going to burn about 4 hours.
No, and that
So,
canvas is only as thick as canvas gets.
and so I remember having to get up in about 3 a.m. and get the fire started again, which was, whatever. It was, an experience. I mean, it was beautiful, and I wish
It
we
was.
had some more time, like to just, even take video. Like we just didn't have a lot of time. We were tired as it was.
I kind of felt like when the morning came that we had to do the pack all of your stuff up because we're going to a different place, I was kind of like not excited about it. But when we got to Ulam and saw the accommodations and just the resort itself with all the tents, is that a yurt? I don't know if I would ever do this on my own, like intentionally, purposely book something at a place like this. So once we got there and I saw it, I was okay. And it wasn't that much of an irritation because we got the experience of doing that. But then also I felt like kind of cut short on that experience because we were out on the trail so long.
And I was so excited to get up that next morning because the day before on Steelbender, we had ditched the drone. I was taking a shot. You were going up rocks next to a river. I hit a tree. It fell in the water. And for some odd reason, it worked throughout the day. And we were able to get all that great video of that crazy drop that we were going on. But that next morning, everything went to hell. And there was this great feature of the desert where there was a great big hole in the middle of this natural statue out there, and I wanted to fly through it and I couldn't get it to work. So we have no aerials from that area, but it was just such a beautiful area.
It was. The stars that night were very epic, and and I would say that the fact that was in the middle of the trip and it was very far out of the way.
It was.
It wasn't really close.
Right.
And so, granted, I enjoyed it, but I probably could have done without that experience just from a convenience standpoint.
Right. I mean, if you bring some of the factor in, with people that want a different type of experience, it was cool. The food was great. The surroundings were amazing. Time of year, you definitely had those cold evenings and cold early mornings. And so I get that. But that's kind of nitpicking. I mean, it was
nitpicking.
Cool,
it
right?
Is
I mean,
but
like when you look at the overall experience, it's like, wow, we got to see a lot.
And this kind of brings me like to the last point, which is like obviously the cost, because the cost will deter a lot of people. And I get, look, there's a market for luxury in everything, right? There's a luxury market in every aspect of our lives. Some people can afford the luxury and some people can't. And, at the end of the day, if you have it and you want to do it, you'll do it. And they have people, I mean, they sold out the trip this year. They sold out the trip last year. People will pay it if they, think it's worth the experience. And at the end of the day, let's just say 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I'm not going to remember the money part. I'm going to remember the pictures and the videos and the memories from that trip, the people that we met. Like, I'm not going to remember the money part. So
it really felt like, in spite of the fact that it cost what it did, was that you were getting your money's worth. We didn't feel like we were getting gouged or hosed or at all.
To me, the Moab price was because we were celebrating my birthday, my milestone birthday. Hadn't happened yet, but now I am 50. I guess it kind of, to me, that was the, not excuse, but you earned it. It's your birthday. This is your birthday celebration. But so that way, when we were looking at the Iceland trip, I'm like, that's too much for just a regular vacation. And I said, why don't we put that on the back burner, maybe for when I retire, and we could see what kind of signature trip they're offering then and do something like that then. So the price for it was not that expensive for Moab, but yeah, it was because we were doing it for a celebration.
So anything else that you remember or you want to share about the trip?
You know, the one thing I would say is there wasn't a lot of away time, and we made our own away time. So people, I think, would love to go somewhere. They want to experience something, and it was very segmented. And it might not be a bad thing to consider that, that last night we saw, oh my God, there's a barbecue place. Let's check it out. Want a little bit of time away, and we went out, had some very good, I wouldn't say it was the best, barbecue and a beer and just a little alone time to sort of explore where you are. And I think that's something that they could consider that might be a little bit of savings on people. Like, you don't have to provide every night for meals and things like that, because it gives you a chance to explore and see things.
Right. Well, maybe they could option out the package a little bit, like
Yeah.
you do it with the meals or without the meals. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
if it makes it harder for them or not.
Right.
I think they're about trying to make it simple
Yep.
on many fronts. So it's probably simpler to just have everybody in on the one plan. But like I said, I do think, there could be ways to make the trip cost less. I'm not sure they're necessarily interested in that. I would have liked to
Right.
seen some more difficult trails. Maybe I didn't need
Yeah.
the tent camping part of it. Like, I would have been okay just staying at the Hoodoo, but overall, great trip. I would definitely love to go back to Moab with my Jeep,
Oh, yeah.
and that will be something that I will be planning for maybe next year. We'll
Oh,
see. We'll see
I'd
how
like
my
to hear
cross
that.
country trip goes this
I like to hear
year.
that for you.
We'll have to see how that goes. But I think overall, the people that we met, the things that we saw, the experience as a whole was A+.
Absolutely. Stories shared, people that we met. It was just a cool experience to get outside of your own area and what you're comfortable with, and to experience that. So yeah.
It was really nice and very personable, it was it didn't seem like it was them and us. It felt like we were all one unit, the whole, like a team, just all of us together, which was great. Yeah.
All right. Well, until next time, I'm Art.
I'm Tom.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening.